I want to call the Thursday, November 21st, 2024 meeting of the Charter Revision Commission to order. Our first order of business is the approval of the minutes for the November 7th meeting.
So moved.
Peter has moved that we accept the minutes. Does anybody have any corrections or anything to them?
I second.
And I think they did the part
they
that
did the-
was right.
Yes.
So all those in favor of approving the minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
I'll abstain because I wasn't here.
All right. Now we're going to go to old business, and there are a couple things that I think Hannah and Peter have things on that haven't been in the public domain yet. You know, the
Yeah.
ethics and recall, which we can, I mean, we all haven't seen it either. So I think we want to just move past those tonight. Does that sound okay to you, Hannah?
Yeah, I apologize. I didn't miss last meeting. I was really sick.
I know.
And I'm still playing catch up, and I just
Yeah.
am not. I'm just running behind on
No.
everything.
So
We totally get
do you
that.
think we could move those, the ethics and the recall to December?
Yes, I've received the language from Peter. I just
Yep.
need to.
Yeah.
And just generally speaking, it would be really helpful if someone were able to assist me with sort of keeping track of all of the changes that we've made and sort of having like maybe a document bank of like the approved language.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to start putting it into the charter at this point.
Yeah.
Because we may be making some more substantive large changes and that would make putting that stuff in
Right.
now irrelevant.
I'll be happy to work with you.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when's the first December meeting is December 7th
It was that Thursday.
or the 5th? It's the 5th.
I believe it's the 5th.
And I'll be missing that
That's
meeting.
right.
But I will be here on the 19th.
Okay. Yeah, the 5th and
So,
the
but
19th.
you're fine presenting.
Yeah.
There's something big, we won't do it until Peter comes back.
Yeah.
Something big, and
Sorry?
I said something that's big, we will wait for you. We'll do it. But, okay, so the next thing up on the agenda is the Selectboard Procedure language.
That's actually among the items that
We're
I had
saving?
sent to Hannah, so that'll be coming also in December.
Perfect. Now, we had the issue on the charter revision process language, remember
And
that?
I have it. It's in the packet.
That's
I think it's the last page.
last page. Okay. And just in case, like, to recap for the people who don't have this in front of them and are watching this, we were trying to figure out what, at least, in the charter now, it says at least every 15 years, and our whole issue was, well, what does that mean, and when does it start, and when does it end, and everything. So this was to clarify what that meant.
So I know it says Peter on the agenda because that was my mistake. It's actually me. I drafted this, and I'm sorry, I forgot. I thought I had sent it to everybody a long time ago, but I didn't, so I sent it this morning. And I received one comment from the public on it, and Tom Mazakowski thought we should put in which adoption of the charter? Do we want it to be the legislature, or the RTM, and I would suggest saying at least as often as every 15 years following the adoption by the legislature of the charter.
Before sort of that kind of conversation, I recall us talking about not the adoption because of how long it takes, but actually at the start of the commission to potentially force, in my mind, it was like to potentially force the first, if there's two, it forces the first one to finish, or at least acknowledges, because otherwise it could take 20 years to do a charter, and now you're 35 years before, you know, like it. So I remember discussion being about the start of the commission, which I realize we don't want to put a hard and fast time to say our commission started in 2022, so we should start, like, put 15 years after 2022, you know, like, I realize we don't want to do that, but, and so again, I don't have the language for that, but I thought it, to me, was more compelling to be the start of each commission as opposed to the end.
I don't think we want to say adoption either, because it could be rejected. And then,
Okay.
like, I think that, I mean, you could maybe say like from submission to the legislature, or.
Yeah, because they could easily reject it, so
There's also, because there's the different ways in which it can be modified, it's true right now as we sit here that there have been modifications to the current charter since the last charter commission. So then does that restart the clock or doesn't it? I totally agree with the things that have been said about not tying it to adoption. I think there's a simple fix to do what Joy suggested, which is to say strike the words that are all up to the comma. So it says at least as often as 15 years following the adoption of the charter. Strike all of that and replace it with within 15 years of the appointment of a charter review commission. The select board shall appoint from among the voters a new charter review commission. It would tie to the appointment date 15 years on. So in our case, it was actually, I think we were appointed in December of 21, even though we started working in 22. Is that right?
yeah.
No?
Or was it 22?
think it was-
Or is it, December 22, and then working in 23. Got it, thank you, sorry. Yep, so from December 22 to December 37 would be the ticking clock under these rules. It would be nice and clear.
Okay, within 15 years of the appointment of a new.
Of a charter review
A
commission.
charter.
Within 15 years of the appointment of a charter review commission, the select board shall appoint from among the voters a new charter review commission to review the language of the charter and the rights, powers, duties, and responsibilities specified therein.
Nice.
Where does this language go in the charter?
It goes, hold on a second. I have it written
I have it.
somewhere here.
It's in the select board, at the, kind of the end of the select board section. It is on page 8 of the charter, section H.
Yeah, page 8, the top of it, section H. And it's under the powers and responsibilities of the select board.
Do we want to say shall appoint?
Now, the other thing is what's not included here is there's other language included in that part.
Yeah, I didn't, we weren't,
Well, that's what I'm
we
saying.
didn't talk about it, so I
No.
didn't change it.
No, and that's what I want to make sure that we don't want to change anything.
So I'm sorry, can we just go back to this? The within 15 years seems to give a lot of discretion to the select board that I mean, I think that makes it less clear to, like, I think it would be better to have it be very clear when the next commission should be convened, rather than saying anytime within the next 15 years you can appoint another one.
So 15 years
I think
after the appointment of a charter review commission, the select board shall appoint a new commission?
I think the circumstances could arise that might warrant the select board moving quicker, and that the 15-year piece is the protection to make sure that we don't all fall asleep and fail to, do this on an interval.
So it's at least.
But it leaves open the possibility it could be done sooner if it needed to be done sooner.
Right.
So at
why
least-
don't we leave the at least as often as
That's what
every
I'm saying.
15 years from the appointment of a previous commission, you can appoint a new commission.
Of
So-
the previous?
I know we're into picky wordsmithing here. My reaction to that, and I'm happy to be overruled if the others of you don't feel this way about it, is the reason I suggest within instead of at least as often as is it just feels clearer to me. The at least as often as language felt unnecessarily cumbersome to me. And if you feel like it's more legally appropriate, and if
I think
the rest of
that
you want to put it in, that's fine.
the distinction is that this makes it clear that you have to do it at least every 15 years.
Yeah.
Whereas within 15 years, it's like you could do it in 8 years. It doesn't create that sort of like 15-year max that this language does.
I think it does, actually. That's its intent, is within 15 years. So you can't go to 16 years because it's got to be within 15, but you still, in either case, could go 8.
Well, if we say at least within 15 years after the appointment of, do we want to say, of a charter review commission, the select board shall appoint a new charter review commission.
So are we taking the within out? So read that again. At
No, we're
least?
going to say at least within. I don't know.
I don't think that
No.
I mean, maybe we can defer to Bob to this on this, but I in my mind, this is clearer than within.
Okay.
I think that what we were asked by the select board was, when does the 15 years start?
Yes.
And we're being nice and clear about that. It's at appointment.
Yes.
So, yeah, you can talk to Bob and
So,
the
So
words
at
can land
least
where
as
they land.
often as every 15 years.
I thought we were just, so we're still keeping the as often, or are we just saying at least 15 years after the appointment of a charter revision commission, the select board should blah, 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 blah? Like, how are we doing
We
that?
don't want to say that because that means actually waiting until 15 years and
Right.
then forever after would still qualify, which is the
Right.
reverse of what we mean.
Right. So we should keep in the as often. I mean, at least as, are we saying at least as often as 15
At
years
least.
of the appointment of a charter revision, a review commission?
At least as often
As 15 years?
as,
If we go off this change language, if you keep everything the same up to following, and then instead of saying adoption of the charter appointment, appointment of the commission,
following
The appointment?
yeah.
the,
Well, what's previous mean, though? Do you know what I mean? I think putting the word doesn't word putting, because we're saying the appointment of
well,
a
previous
commission.
just means the commission that was appointed 15 years
Yeah.
before. That's all.
It's not going to be unclear because you have this 15-year timeline.
So, let's see, let me see if I can read this back, and then I will type it up and send it out again.
Was Bob has a suggestion. Bob has his hand up.
Can I read it out first, Bob?
Sure, go ahead.
At least as often as every 15 years following the appointment of the previous Charter Review Commission, the Select Board shall appoint a new Charter Review Commission.
I like that. What I was going to suggest a minute or so ago was kind of the flip of that by saying not longer than 15 years from the appointment of a Charter Review Commission, the Select Board shall. But I think what you just read says the same thing.
I think we should go with Bob's variation on that. I think it's clearer, and we're getting all
Messed
over
up.
each other on trying to use the at least as often language. Not
you
longer
say that
than
again,
feels like
Bob?
it's right there.
Right.
Yeah.
Bob, can you say that again?
I'll try. I think it was not later than 15 years from the Select Board's appointment of the Charter Review Commission. The Select Board shall appoint a new Charter Review Commission.
Is there a reason we have decided to change this language from revision to review?
Yes.
Yeah.
We had a discussion about that last month, and we had a consensus. You should push back on it if you don't share it so that we can talk it through some more. But the charter review, we liked Charter Review Commission because this commission is definitely going to review the charter. It's not necessarily going to recommend revisions to the charter. It's not being established to revise the charter. It's being established to review the charter. And I'd like the record to reflect that wasn't my suggestion. It came from somebody else, and we all agreed.
It's been bugging Maya since the
Well, we're going to have to change the language throughout then. There
Yep.
are other references
That's right.
Yeah,
Yep.
we
to
will.
the Charter Revision Commission.
Yeah.
We will.
Yeah. This was just the first time, like, we decided we wanted to do a review, but this is the first instance where it's come up. But we have it on the list of need to change.
So is it implicit in saying review that you may or may not revise it?
Yes.
Right.
That doesn't need.
It's explicit in the provision that they may or may not revise it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because we can review.
But you
Okay.
can't do anything else.
I will take what we said and
Write it up again.
probably do 2 alternatives that we can look at next month.
Yeah.
Does that make sense to everybody?
Yeah.
And I will try to send them out, not on the day of the meeting.
Yeah. And just to answer Denise's question too, if you read the language that comes after what we just did, it says the commission may propose amendments and may redraft the charter in whole or in part.
Okay.
Yeah, so what you just said fits perfectly. Your question fits perfectly within that sentence.
Good.
Which I just read for the first time. Okay, so do we feel like we have some kind of consensus on that, and that Maya will work on something and we'll look at it again?
I will
Okay.
produce 2 alternatives probably.
Would you, Maya, mind including the whole section of H?
I will.
Thank you.
It's easier to read it like that, yeah. Okay. All right, so the next thing to look at is the Finance Committee section. And what I came up with was based on showing it to the Finance Committee. And the strikeout of, if anyone's looking for this, this is Article 2. It's on page 3 of the charter, if anyone's following along.
Well, we lost our public.
I know, we lost, there might be other public out there, though. Never, at 2 in the morning, somebody watching us. So that whole section, it's all here. And what was taken out, you can see the strikeout that says town school district. And we've taken out, because there's no school district like that anymore, and we've taken out including the Brattleboro Union High School School District 6, because that doesn't exist. And the school finance director is taken out because it's not there is one, but it's not, doesn't have anything to do with us anymore. So all of that remained the same except for that. And then what they wanted us to put in was having a maximum of 7 members and a minimum of 5, and replacements to be made by the moderator. So at the last paragraph that starts with the pursuant part has been added. The Finance Committee shall consist of a minimum of 5 members and a maximum of 7. Members shall serve 1-year terms. Vacancies shall be filled by the town moderator. So this is what the Finance Committee asked us to do. Whether we want to change it, that's obviously up to us. Peter.
I think what you have suggested and what the Finance Committee has suggested both look great. And I'd like to delete a few more words and like to explain why. So let me explain why first, or it might seem kind of weird that I make this recommendation. So this reference to the town finance director and other town officials is not in keeping with at least some of the historical practice. There may have been years when that happened. There may have been eras when that happened. I know of time when I don't know what it is today. I know that between 2015 and 2022, it was common that the town manager's office, Patrick or I, met with the finance committee. Occasionally, the finance director would do that, but it was not their primary support staff. We were. And I think that worked well during our period of time of doing this. And I want to leave open that possibility that, sometimes it might be the finance director during certain administrations and certain finance committees, but at other times it might be the town manager's office. At other times it might be select board members, for all we know. I mean, it's just different. There might be different needs at different times. And if so, what I'm suggesting is that we delete the town finance director just before school finance director and delete the words "and other," so that the sentence would now read, "The committee will work with town officials in assessing the recommendations," et cetera. And leave it to the committee and to the town officials at the time to decide what the appropriate mix is.
Does anyone have any comments?
No,
or problems
I
with that?
worked with the town finance director when I was on the finance committee.
But there's no reason we have to
But
put
it
them.
doesn't mean we have to,
Yeah.
I think town officials
Yeah.
covers everything.
Yeah.
Good.
Does that
Thanks.
sound good with everybody? Now, do we feel okay on voting on this tonight? Because we've
I
only
have a concern
Oh, yeah.
about the language in the second paragraph based on what we've added, because it says that the town meeting can alter the number of members and their terms of office, and we have just set those terms. So what's the point of adding those if the town meeting can just undo that?
I think that the way I see it is that, it gives town meeting the ability to say, no, we don't want it to be 5 anymore. You know what I mean? That's the way I read it.
Well,
Because
then why are we saying it has to be 5?
Because I think that we want to have some kind of baseline when they're going to see, because this all happens at town meeting, and they ask for, volunteers. And if we don't say how many the finance committee wants, we could end up with like 12 people, but they only want 5. But then they also want to be able to change it without us having to come back to the charter and change it. Do you know what I mean? I think that was the whole idea of having some kind of what we're thinking between 5 and 7.
But it doesn't, I agree with Hannah, it doesn't make any sense.
I agree with that too. And they couldn't change it to below 5 or above 7
Right.
without changing the charter.
Yeah.
So
Well, that's what I thought. I think that's what they were thinking. Like
Yeah.
we can. So what do we want to do then? Not put numbers in?
No, I think
I
we
think you
should,
want to take that language out of the second paragraph.
yes,
So the only way they would be able to change the numbers is have a charter change.
yes.
yes.
Okay.
And the terms.
But it could still be fixed and from time to time may alter the manner of the selection in terms of office, their compensation, members' compensation. I mean,
Well,
they'll
we're
take a
saying
little
it's a one-year
wordsmithing.
term, so I think that needs to come out too.
Yeah.
Good point. Good catch.
So
Yep.
are we talking about taking the entire paragraph that says the representative town meeting shall fix from time to time might alter the number of members, the manner of selection?
Yes.
Is that what we're taking out?
Yes.
No, because
I don't
Peter was just saying to leave in the manner of selection.
Right.
Yes.
Right. Because I don't want to take that. I don't think we take that whole thing
We're just
out.
taking
And
out
compensation.
the number of members in terms of office.
Correct.
Bob wants to say something.
Bob? Bob has something.
Can you hear me all right?
Yes.
Okay. Historically, it's always been that manner of their selection and the change, et cetera, that is always so ambiguous when we get to town meeting. So in terms, obviously it's up to you, but the idea of the finance committee setting it of no less than 5 nor more than 7, the idea there is to set the numbers so that you're not coming up with all of that at town meeting. And frankly, my suggestion is that you take out that whole section and you say members shall be nominated from the, at town meeting. So that you have the manner of their election set forth in the charter, and that's the way it's done. I mean, that's the way it's done for many of the other boards that are in the charter. So why not make the finance committee set that way? And that way you don't have a whole debate at town meeting as to how you're doing it.
Well, we do have pursuant to the rules established by representative town meeting, appointment or election of the finance committee members shall be made at each annual representative town meeting.
So let's just take manner of selection out too. It's already said.
Although
But that's what,
we could get really arcane here. I'm coming around to believing too that we should delete all of it and let
Yeah.
that bottom paragraph just
Well, that's fine.
speak to this.
Should we
But-
preserve
but-
the last sentence?
But there is actually some, I mean, there could be, for instance, like, voting, someone calling for a paper vote instead of a hand vote or something like, I mean, the method of selection thing, but I think that's getting really arcane, and if we just do rely on the bottom paragraph, pursuant to the rules established by representative town meeting, appointment or election of the finance committee shall be made at each annual representative town meeting, that's gonna happen, and it might happen a little differently at different years, it usually happens the same way. And it does feel like that suffices, and we could get rid of the entire
Can we
other
add,
paragraph.
keep the last sentence?
We could, and maybe
The
drop it
committee-
down to be after.
committee may choose its own officers.
Vacancy
Yeah.
shall be filled by the town moderator. The committee may choose its own office.
I think so.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, but we don't have to, Bob suggested saying members shall be nominated RTM, but that's the first, we have that pursuant to the rules established by, made at each annual town meeting.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, so what
We're
we.
just taking the second paragraph.
Yeah.
Yes.
Moving the last sentence to the last sentence of the next
Okay,
paragraph.
sounds
Yeah.
good. Okay, so I'll redo this.
Question.
Oh, yeah, oh, Joy, I'm sorry.
No, not having served on the finance committee, is there any concern about rules and procedures like we have discussed for other groups in
No.
the charter?
The finance committee seems to,
No sort of like Robert's, like they need to establish Robert's rules is how you engage us, or
No.
this sort
no,
of thing?
it's usually proceeds by agreement and consensus, and that
Yeah.
it seems to work pretty well. The only thing that I've heard is that when they got, one year they had 13 members
Yeah.
and they couldn't meet.
When they didn't have a quorum.
They,
Sure.
because they couldn't find a
Yeah.
time, and that's why they want to limit it.
Yeah, and in the first paragraph sort of outlines what their role is too, I think very nicely. And it seems, because Maya was on it, and
Yeah.
it just seems like this is what they do, and it's,
This is how they're formed.
yeah.
Totally.
Yeah.
I would propose not voting on this now.
Oh, no, I'm going to type it back up. so we
Well,
can
and,
get it.
and also just because this refers to representative town meeting, and
Yeah.
there's no point in adopting a change that we might have to update
Right.
later.
Right, yep, so we can.
But I
put
think
this-
we're all good with the edits, and we have that sort of in
Yeah.
the wings, but I
Right.
don't think we need to vote on it.
Yeah. Because it might end up be open town meeting or whatever we're going to call it. Okay, so I'll get this all ready to go. So we'll have it. Fix, okay. Okay, so we'll do that. We'll get that one done. Next up, and this is, we're going to have Bob's help. He's helping us on everything, but this is the good one. We got to review the language for the non-binding referendum that we want to ask the select board to put on the March ballot for the townwide vote. And Bob has drafted up language for us. Where is it?
It's right before the one we were sitting here.
Really, Patrick and I,
Oh, Patrick.
can't see Patrick, but if
Oh, yeah.
he's there, we did change one to a may versus a shall, I think, right, Patrick?
That was something I was going to recommend, so why don't I make that recommendation?
Do you want me to read it, or do you want to, I want to read this so we all hear it.
Whenever you're ready.
Yeah, would you want to read it and tell us what you changed, or what's the best way to do it? Do you want me, I'll read the thing, and then you can go back and tell us where we want to change. Okay, so this is the advisory vote. Shall the town of Brattleboro advise the select board and the Charter Review Commission to rescind representative town meeting, resulting in an open town meeting, or to maintain representative town meeting, as will be modified by recommendations of the Charter Review Commission? Then there's a check, in favor of rescinding representative town meeting or in favor of maintaining representative town meeting as will be modified by recommendations of the Charter Review Commission. Now, we're not the Charter Review Commission yet, so we have to go with charter revision. Okay, so now Patrick, what word?
So I have a suggestion
Yes.
that you can do with as you will. In the first paragraph, last sentence, within the parentheses, it says, "as will be modified."
Oh,
And you might say, "as may be modified."
Yeah.
And the same thing
Yeah.
in the second choice.
Yeah.
And the reason I think may be more appropriate than will is it may leave the reader with the impression
Yeah.
that there's already a predetermined
right.
RTM that is, defined already.
Yeah.
And there isn't. So as maybe leaves the reader, I think, with a clearer understanding of the intersection they're at this moment, if that makes sense.
I agree.
And I agree with that as well, just for the record here, I guess.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, it also doesn't, it sounds like we will do something as opposed to we may do something. It makes it sound like we're going to.
Yep.
I mean, I think we would if
Yeah.
that was, but I think that Patrick's right that that's
Craig, did you
confusing
get
to
this?
say that we will, like, it seems like this would be like the triggering thing
Yeah.
to put those new changes in place, whereas they haven't been drafted yet.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Peter?
I 100% agree with all of that. I think that's a great catch and a great change. And I think we can strengthen this and make it clearer to the voting public with one additional change, which would be to tag on. I'm uncomfortable in the same way that saying will make changes as opposed to may make changes needed our attention. I think it also, at least it makes me uncomfortable that we're saying may be modified by recommendations of the Charter Revision Commission, as if we have the ability to cause modification, right? We're going to make recommendations, and they may be recommendations to modify the meeting. I think we should add words to the effect of "and actions by the town" or "actions by RTM." So, as may be modified by future recommendations of the Charter Revision Commission and actions by the town. Or I struggled to, Bob, I'm hoping you can help out here, whether we would say actions by the town, actions by RTM, actions by whom.
I think actions by the town is too broad.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too.
Fine. If you look at other amendments, there's a section on how you amend. So
Right.
I think for purposes of the advisory article, less is more.
Okay.
Either you want to do away with it or keep it. And the may makes it such that the Charter Review Commission, may make changes. But the whole idea is advising the board as to whether to do away with representative town meeting or not. That's what we need to get the advice on. I wouldn't wordsmith it too much because it's going to confuse the matter.
Okay. Fair enough, but in terms of adding all those words, what about switching by to pursuant to, as may be modified pursuant to recommendations of the Charter Review Commission, Charter Revision
Yeah,
Commission?
that's fine. I'm okay with that. And
I just want to soften the will.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, we did the will, but the by also feels like it's
So,
more power than we have.
Yeah, I can agree with that. Everybody, unfortunately, I have to jump to another meeting. If that meeting goes less than 45 minutes, I'll rejoin.
Okay.
If it goes longer than that or whatnot, I'll at least rejoin, but if you're still going, you're going. If you're not, I'll catch up with Patrick tomorrow.
Yeah, no, thank you. This is what we really needed your help on.
Okay,
So thank you.
super.
Thank you.
Enjoy your evening, and I'll rejoin if I can.
We
So-
need to change all the charter review to
revision.
charter revision.
Yeah, and so I want to go back what Peter was talking about. So it's in the first, where it says article, it will say, or to maintain representative town meeting as may be modified pursuant to recommendations of the Charter Revision Commission.
That's what I believe it should say, yes.
How does everybody feel about that?
And then the same change in the second
Yeah,
statement for actually casting the vote.
yeah. So it'll say, in favor of maintaining representative town meeting as may be modified pursuant to recommendations of the Charter Revision Commission. Does that sound good to everybody?
Yes.
So we'll take that part out.
I'm sorry to do
No.
this, but I want to add, I think it's great. There's one word I want to just suggest we think about. I'm not recommending this, but I think it might be helpful to being explicitly clear of what's going on here.
Yeah.
If we say future recommendations, pursuant to future recommendations of the Charter Review Commission, or Revision Commission, it would be clear on its face that those recommendations don't exist yet.
I know this is time bound. I worry that it might read as, I know it's non-binding, but it might read as like any future can be advised by this.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like I said, I'm
I
not
think that this
pushing it.
goes more to like the education campaign work
Yeah.
I have to do in relation to this.
Yeah.
I think that Bob's point of keeping the language as simple and
Yep.
straightforward as we can
Yep.
is
I will also
Good point.
acknowledge in the same way, pursuant to is not lay language.
Right.
And the lay person is going to be voting on this. So I am stumbling on that,
Yeah.
but I do not have an alternative. And I just don't want that to be in the way.
Yeah, I agree with you. It sounds very legal.
Synonym for
And,
pursuant.
what?
I'm going to look up a synonym for pursuant. Say, there might be a word.
I
Yeah,
get
there
it.
might
It
be.
makes sense, like in the charter. It makes sense in these places, but this is a
On the
lay
ballot.
vote.
Yep. I hear you.
And unless Kate can come up with another word, I would be in favor of leaving it as by.
Well, it goes pursuant is a formal word that means in accordance with or following.
Following recommendations.
Let's see more.
and following kind of solves the other problem too, which
It
says that
does.
they're going to
Totally.
come later.
Yes, I like it. I think it does do both things.
Okay.
And
so
in a way
How
that is
about
not
following
cumbersome.
any recommendations, not, so adding also any. So following any recommendation.
Modified by
Wait, so-
following.
No, what?
Modified following recommendations of.
Following recommendation and following any
I
recommendation.
don't think we should say any.
Yeah, no.
Yep.
Okay.
Maybe
So-
modified following recommendations. Yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
I think that does solve both things artfully.
Okay, so it's going to
Efficiently.
say modified following recommendations of the Charter Revision Commission. Is that what we're saying?
Yes.
Maybe modified following recommendations of the Charter Revision Commission.
See, AI worked, you guys. Get us a word. Okay. Okay, so we'll type this up again. Following. Okay. Okay, so does that sound good for now? And I'll type it up and then we can go over it again. Okay. I'm gonna write this down so I don't forget. Now, the thing is, we wanted to go over, just look at this list and I have a suggestion, and it's more for the 2025 schedule, but it's for figuring out where we go next with this warning. And that's why we had that list that we went through with Bob that night, and we have it here. And I think that was going to play a role, this list will play a role in how we inform the public about what we're doing, and describing to them what this question is all about. So I don't know, we don't have to take time now to look at it, but one of these days, I think we have to figure out how we're going to present this to the voters. And I'm assuming, and it might not happen, but who knows? I'm saying, everything I say is assuming the select board is going to say, yeah, let's put it on the ballot. So let's assume we present this language, they say, yeah, we'll put it on the ballot. The election is March 4th or 5th, whichever day it is.
I think it's 4th, but.
4th, yeah. And between the end of January, when they approve the warning, and March 4th or 5th, we need to do get the public to know what we're doing.
Right.
Which, in my mind, would, and you guys can say, no, this is not what you want, but in my mind, I think we talked about this as doing some kind of public event. And I was thinking that probably the best place to do that we'd ask Star if we can use the main floor of the library. And if we got BCTV to cover it, they can zoom in, all this kind of stuff, tape it. That would be my suggestion. And we work with Star right now, so we get the date, we know what the heck we're doing. BCTV knows, blah, 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 blah. So when the select board says yes, we're ready to roll and advertise it. If they say no, nobody knows we did it but ourselves. But then it's...
And the meeting minutes.
Yes, I know.
And everybody's watching.
At 2 a.m.
That's 2 people. But then I think the bigger thing, besides like the logistics of where and when, is how we present this thing. So I don't know Peter was thinking about helping do a first run
Yeah,
through.
if it pleases the commission, I'd love to draft something that might serve the purpose of also being op-ed, once we've all rallied around language that explains, we're asking for this thing because, and then that would kind of tee up this public gathering that you're talking about.
Yeah. Does that sound good to you guys?
And I could do the first draft of that sometime in mid-December, and we'd have plenty of time to get it final before the end of January.
Yeah. Hannah, what are your thoughts?
My one thought is that I don't want this to turn into a discussion about how we should change RTM. I think we need to make sure that the focus stays narrow.
Totally agree with that.
This is the either or.
Yeah.
We're not talking about what the changes would be to RTM.
Right.
It's just that the feedback we have gotten is that there needs to be
Yeah.
some changes, and there's no point in discussing those further until we know if we're keeping that
Yes,
system.
Right.
That's
But I just don't want it to devolve into this is what's wrong with RTM, or this is what's so great about RTM, and just focus on, should we, adapt the system we have, or should we move to something else?
Right, and the something else being reverting to that which is standard in Vermont, open
Right.
town meeting.
Right.
Yeah.
And I agree, because it's how we present it, what this meeting is how we present it, and the material we present will drive that train too. So I agree with you, because we could spend 5 hours with everybody going. And I think it's it's a good opportunity for us to explain what we've been doing and why we're doing it, and what the question is, and then what happens. You say the work of the commission on how RTM or open RTM is structured happens after November 4th or 5th, not November, March 4th or 5th. So you're right, we have to keep that focus. Because then after the election, whatever the ballot, however that vote happens, whatever happens, one way or another, we're going to be making decisions on what comes next. So I think that's what we have to explain to people. You can have all of that after the townwide vote. We'll have another meeting about whatever way it comes out. So you're 100% right.
And then RTM can reject any
Exactly.
changes that we make.
Exactly. Yeah. All right, so does that make sense? We're totally on the same page, and I think it's how we present it. And we have, once Peter does a draft of something, then we can look at it and mull it around to make sure we're giving the message that we want.
Is that okay?
Does that
With the
make
rest
sense?
of you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm sorry, I'm
Nice.
struggling with them. I told Kate, I'm fighting a migraine, and I'm gonna have to go because of the lights.
Yeah.
They're harsh here.
They are. We'll tell you what happens.
So
Yeah.
tell me what else you need on the agenda.
I'll let you know.
Yeah.
Yep.
I will give a quick bump, Peter, that if you want a second set of eyes before it goes before others, as somebody who like,
Sure. Terrific.
I kind of care as well as like how a non-insider might
Totally.
read it.
Yep.
I would be happy.
As
to-
we have collaborated before. Happy to. Sure.
Okay. Now, if you folks are okay with it too, I will go over and ask Star, is she on board? I don't know why she wouldn't be on board. And then maybe what I can do is get some suggested dates, so when we meet again or something, we can circulate the dates and make sure it doesn't conflict with other stuff. But I think we got to get the ball rolling, so we're not scrambling, on February 1st, freaking out that we don't know what we're doing.
Totally.
Okay. Okay. So does anyone have anything else about that agenda item? Can we move on? Okay, this next one I asked to put on, and I'm not asking for a big discussion about this right now, but I wanted it out there that what I would like to do after March, the March elect vote on these two things, when we're deciding, we're going to decide on March whatever, that this is, the public is going to say we like either open or we like RTM. Once we do that, we have to fine tune exactly what that means. And you know what I mean? Like, what do those things mean? I want to bring up then, but I want to get everybody to know this now, that
Good night, Maya.
I'm going to want to suggest that even if we stay with RTM or open RTM, that the one thing that's done by Australian ballot is the town budget. And I don't think we have to put that on the ballot because it's not changing everything to an Australian ballot. You know what I mean? It would be one of the functions of how we operate open and RTM. And I didn't want to bring it up on March whatever and not have everybody go, well, why didn't you say anything like now? And I'm not asking it to be on the ballot. I'm just saying having it one of the things we talk about when we're deciding how the either open or RTM is going to function. And I don't, we don't have to get into a big discussion about it now. I just wanted you folks to know that's what I personally am thinking and want to bring up when we get to that point. I didn't want it.
Walk me through the implications again. So you do not want this to be part of the driving conversation before March.
Right, because I see it, we can have a big conversation before March. It's not like, to me, it's what happens.
But you don't want it to impact the vote, the non-binding advisory vote.
Right, because there might be other things. We have this list, and there might be other things that RTM or Open Town or RTM is doing now that we learned from Bob, they don't have to do anymore. Do you know what I mean? So when we have this thing on the ballot, we're not saying to people, but we might take away things that RTM does. So to me, I see this as also, well, we may not have RTM vote on the ballot, it might be Australian. Do you see what I mean? That's why I don't think this has to be on the ballot, because it's just one thing. I don't want to switch us to all Australian ballot.
Right. No, I mean, I get that, like, why to keep the information meeting on the non-binding advisory vote crystal clear,
Yes.
because the implications need worked out by every individual who's going to vote.
Right.
My then question, like, the implication is the information that's provided
Yeah.
for an educated,
Right.
because
Right.
it would be very hard for me to sit in front of people and not be like, guess what? You don't know. Or like what no one is asking.
Right.
Sitting in a room of
Right.
people and no one asked the one question.
Right. Well, that's why we have this chart. In some ways, this is why it's interesting, like how we talk about this meeting, because I don't know, we may, I don't know, if we take the chart that Bob did and you look at it and you say, oh, we can do X, Y, and Z, open, blah, 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 Australian. And the thing is, we could do everything we do right now at RTM by Australian ballot. You know what I mean? But we're not recommending that we do everything by Australian ballot. So to me, and I don't know how you want to deal with it. I'm just sort of wanted to tell everybody, I don't want you to get blindsided when I come forward in March and say, hey, you guys, I think we ought to, whatever it goes, RTM or open, say or recommend that the charter gets changed to say that budgets are voted by everybody townwide by Australian ballot. And to me, it's no different than us coming forward after we figure it out and say, hey, we don't want this in RTM anymore because the select board can do it. Do you know what I mean? And we've talked about those things, but we haven't talked about this Australian ballot budget thing, if I'm making any sense.
Following.
Peter.
I hear you, and I appreciate that you're giving us all this,
Yeah.
several months of heads up. And I think the approval of the budget is so much the big thing that happens at town meeting, whether it be representative town meeting or open town meeting.
Yeah.
The town meeting does a lot of other business, but the thing that is the
Right.
biggest, most impactful thing, other than an occasional bond vote, but every year it's the budget. And I think it's important, not just do I think we should have the conversation before. I think it's important that we have the conversation before. I'd ask that it be, maybe we schedule it for December 19th, or maybe we schedule it for the first meeting in January. We don't have Maya here tonight, and I won't be here the next time, and this is a big one.
Yeah. Well,
But I think it's important because I think it could impact people's opinions about whether we switch to open or whether we keep RTM. If we decide that either way, whichever one we land on, we're going to recommend that the budget be voted by Australian ballot, I think that could impact people. And if we decide together between now and February, we don't want that. We want to leave it the way it is. Then that big annual decision is going to be in whichever, either the open meeting or the RTM.
Right.
So if there's, you want us to seriously consider changing it, and if we're going to seriously consider changing it, I think we need to do that before this vote.
Yeah, and what I didn't want to do is bog us all down. I'm happy to talk about it like as soon as we can. I just didn't want to bog us all down while we're trying to do this open town meeting, because we're not fundamentally, this is why I saw it, but I'm happy to talk about it anytime. We're not asking people to go, we're asking, the vote is go RTM or go open. And we're not saying go everything Australian ballot.
Right.
It would just be this, in my opinion, one thing.
Yep.
But that doesn't mean other people have other things they want to go up by Australian ballot. So I didn't want to confuse everybody going, well, wait a second, what's this third thing? But I'm happy to have the conversation earlier. I mean, I would love to have the conversation earlier. I just didn't want to derail anything we were trying to do.
Sure.
Because ultimately, we may not be able to make that decision until after we know whether it's open or RTM as well. People may not know how to feel about it until we know which direction people have chosen. Because if you think about it, an open town meeting means anybody can come, so that anybody in this entire town can vote on the town budget.
No, registered voters. The same group of people that could do Australian ballot.
So it's sort of like if you have an open town meeting, do you actually have to say it's Australian ballot because anybody and their uncle can come in and do it? The method of voting is different. But you know what I mean? That's sort of why I don't want it to mess up what we're trying to do, but would love to have it sooner rather than later.
Can we schedule it for December 19th?
Oh, yeah.
Are you all planning on being here on December 19th?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. No, that's more exciting. I mean, I'm happy. I wanted to do it sooner, but I didn't want to bother you guys and derail what we were trying to do. Oh, Craig.
Hello, Craig Miskovich, District 7. I'm excited to show up on December 19th and have that discussion. I would be a proponent for moving the budget, and especially the budget, to an Australian ballot. And I have been a representative town meeting member pretty much without exception for 20 years. And I will disagree gently with Mr. Elwell that I don't actually find the discussion on the budget to be fulsome and enlightening. By the time we get to the budget discussion at representative town meeting, almost always we're exhausted and it's late in the day and we've spent far too long on far too many other things. And I will say, because I always say it, and the consistency is the hobgoblin of little minds, I will say that representative town meeting shouldn't be voting on any budgets when 0 of the people this year at representative town meeting were actually elected in a competitive election. Representative town meeting is a well-intentioned and wonderful bunch of volunteers, but none of them are elected in any meaningful way, including myself. And that is not the people who should be voting on the most important exercise of civil participation that we have. Thank you.
Thank you. Patrick?
If I may, I'd like to offer not an alternative perspective. I think regardless of whether an Australian ballot is employed with representative town meeting, with an open town meeting, or whether it's townwide to the voters at large, an Australian ballot is the, all right, I don't think an Australian ballot would be a good idea. And here's why. When the budget is discussed and debated and ultimately voted on using a floor vote, the town, capital T, and the town as a community knows that the outcome will be the passage of a budget. If we use an Australian ballot, the potential outcome is that the budget gets voted down, which necessitates everyone reading tea leaves and trying to come up with what that meant. And then the select board stuck in a position where they have to now make some assumptions as to what that meant and come back for round 2, and then possibly come back for round 3, and then possibly come back for round 4. That doesn't happen with a floor vote, because while the body can raise the budget or decrease the budget, at the end, everything has to be acted upon, and so you're guaranteed an outcome. And I think the town as a whole and the community benefits from that, that result.
Do you want me to give the opposing viewpoint?
It's your commission.
Yeah, so I want to suggest that we not go further. I'm going to do a thing here because you've shown cards and you've shown cards and you've shown cards. I'm going to put mine face up and say, I think for that reason and others, it should happen at the open town meeting or the RTM and not be an Australian ballot. And I don't think we ought to have a full conversation about it. I think we ought to think this through some more, even those of us who already have a strong opinion. I think we ought to come together on a night when we've told the public we're going to have this conversation. I think Maya should be here. I'm grateful that we wait the extra 2 weeks so that I can be here. This is a big one.
Okay, so let's do that. We'll do it on the 19th. Thanks, Craig.
Bye, guys.
Okay, so we'll put that on for the 19th. We'll have a robust discussion. Good debate. Now, Maya has left, so I don't think we should do anything about the 2025 schedule.
That's true.
We can look at that, and well, I think, we can look at it on the 19th, and I don't know if we want to, and it's also going to depend on when this room is available and all this stuff. So maybe Patrick, I can come over before the 19th, and then maybe we can see if the second and third, you know what I mean? Like how we did before, we had the second, fourth, and maybe we can come up with a list of possible dates that everybody can just look at.
Are you around next week?
Yeah.
Me too.
Okay. I'll come over.
Text me. I'm generally doing nothing.
I'll meet you. Patrick, I'll meet you on the High Grove Zone 5, okay?
Ooh, we could go over there and we could work it out together.
Yes.
That'd be cool.
We'll go try to figure out the parking meter together.
That sounds good.
Meeting on the 30th? I have it in my calendar that we're meeting on Monday, the 30th,
Of what month?
December.
I thought it was, no,
But I also have it.
The
for 2
19th?
Thursdays, yeah.
I don't think we have one on the 30th, because that's sort of like
All right.
being really committed, don't you think? I think it's only the two.
Maybe it was maybe, we'll hold
Yeah.
that spot.
We should do it the
Yeah.
31st. Shh. All right, so
I do have January 2nd, though, for some reason, maybe just because of the
you rolled over.
the series that we've been in with first and third.
Okay.
I know Patrick's not here, but it would maybe be helpful to at least send around some proposed dates and
Oh, yeah.
at least start that conversation at the next meeting
Yeah.
instead of waiting another
yeah.
month, because
Yeah.
I'm with you totally. Yeah, what we'll do is Patrick and I will sit down, figure out when this room is available, and then send around dates that coincide with when this room is available. Does that sound good?
Yeah.
And we'll get it going?
Yeah, I'd like to just put this in the hopper.
Yeah.
You'll do that, and you'll see whether or not this works. But from my perspective, unless this has ended up being inconvenient for any of the rest of you, because we're in a rhythm, and also because the public knows what rhythm we're in, even though we don't really get a lot. Tonight we got nobody, but, well, thank you, Craig, but otherwise nobody. But we've had nights when it was a dozen people in the room,
Right.
and I think it's helpful when we're not a moving target.
Yeah.
So I would ask that when you two take a look at this, that you strive to keep us on first and third Thursdays,
Yeah.
please.
Okay. We'll do that, and then we'll circulate it. Okay.
Thanks.
And Amaya's not here either. Again, we'll just hold on. We'll just, if anybody has a problem with this, I'm just going to keep doing our master list, and
Good.
figuring it out. And that way we can set the agenda based on this list.
Good.
Some of it's easy stuff. Some of it's just, we may have to get Hillary Francis to come in a couple, for one meeting and help us with a couple things. But I'll just keep doing that, and we'll set the agenda based on that. And Maya was the one that put discuss inviting the legislative delegation in. I personally don't think this is we're not going to be dealing with anything until a year from now with them. Obviously, we want them to know what's going on, and maybe we can have one of them check in with legislative counsel and make sure that we know the procedure. And then we can get them in when we are a little bit closer to knowing what we're going to do. Does that make sense?
I think that's important.
they're
I
about
don't
to
think
go
we're
into
re-
session. They're
Right.
not gonna be able to
Yeah,
come
we're
meet
not
us
ready
anyways.
to do this between now and January, and once January comes,
They don't care about us
not going to be
anymore.
able to
No.
interact with us around this until June.
Yeah,
So.
that's why I thought I would reach out to one of them and just say, hey, can you go into legislative council, say to us, what do we have, what does, Brattleboro's doing this charter change thing, when do you need from us and when? We'll just at least get that basic information, and then when we're ready.
Sounds
If
good.
That makes sense. Okay. All right. Does anyone, we don't have anything else? Somebody want to adjourn?
I will adjourn. Motion to adjourn.
Joy's moving to adjourn. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We adjourn. Thanks, everybody. That was a good meeting.